Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boon or Bust. This potpourri of advice and insight from two wizened and seasoned IT executives from the IT industry. People who don't have a barrow to push. We're not a product to sell. We just want to tell you what we see in the world today, what perplexes us, what excites us, what enthuses us. And today we're going to talk about a topic which I would say it perplexes me. And Matt, we're talking about the IT awards system. And you know what the trigger for this was to me, Matt?
What was it, Peter?
The trigger for this story, Matt, was an article in IT News that I read about earlier this month. And it was the departure of Beyond Bank's CIO, Stevie Andorico, just over 2 years in the role. And 12 months into that role, Stevie Ann was made the Finance Technology Executive of the Year in Australia. I mean, Matt, that's a pretty high title to get.
Well, it is after only 12 months, Peter, as well. But, you know, the IT News did make the point that Stevie had made a significant contribution to strengthening cyber capabilities and supporting the teams who deliver critical services every day. So that's no mean feat, Peter.
Well, it's no mean feat, but also one could say, isn't that par for the course of what a CIO's got to do? They've got to improve the cyber capabilities of the organisation.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, some do it a lot better than others, Peter. So, you know, what you got to ask yourself is, okay, so what was done that first year by Stevie Ann that set her apart from the 10,000 plus execs, you know, tech execs across NAB, CBA, Westpac, Macquarie, Bendigo Bank, and the rest in Australia as well. So we can kind of say, well, can you really achieve that in that 12 months? But did they actually achieve more in their roles? I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about benchmarking, Peter.
It is, indeed. It is.
It's not necessarily you are the best, but you might be better than your peers.
Yeah, I understand, but there's a lot of people in that organisation, and to say you're Finance Technology Executive of the Year, and, you know, why is it? What have you done to get that anointment? But Matt, here's my big problem, and that is that my experience in the IT industry tells me everything that's worthwhile takes time. You've got to change people's way of working, and that's not a flick a switch to vaudeville and it happens. You've got to make sure that what you're doing and delivering is going to improve and enhance an organisation. And that takes time. I don't think you can do it in 12 months.
I'm not disagreeing here, Peter, but what I would say in this current environment, and the point made here was that she made improvements to Beyond Bank's tech stack and to its strategy around data use over that 12 months, right? Okay, so we can say, you know, these sort of things, you need a 3-year strategy for any sort of major tech transformation. Maybe that's the old way of thinking, Peter. You know, we always revert back to 3-year total cost of ownership, 3-year return on investment. Yet the pace of change we're seeing right now, and indeed the demand from boards, wants much quicker returns on investment, much quicker returns on tech transformation as well. So do we still have the luxury anymore of taking 3 to 5 years?
Well, Matt, it's what we were talking about before. It's actually looking at this as a iteration and evolution of what we're doing. It's about delivery. It's not about a transformation. If you're doing a transformation, you've got to do it in bite-sized chunks that people can digest. But really, the full impact of that transformation is going to be apparent over time.
No, yeah, absolutely agree with you. And coming back to the the analogy I used about the destination postcard and the stops along the way, part of that whole concept is, you know, if you've got 8 bite-sized chunks, as we call it, 8 bites of the elephant, right, as you get to the elephant with the major project in 3 years' time, you have to celebrate the wins.
That's the great thing about working in the IT industry. You're never short of analogies, are you?
Really not. But you have to celebrate the wins.
You do have to celebrate.
And if Stevie Ann or any other CIO has made those stops along the way and succeeded in what she said she needs to do internally in that 12-month period, then potentially that is worthy of recognition. Whether it's worthy of a full award would be another question.
Well, man, let's look at the elephant in the room here, and I'm going to look at the...
I thought we just ate the elephant.
No, we digested it in 8 pieces, but there's a renaissance, he's back with us, and the elephant in this room we're talking about is the subject of IT awards.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, I'm going to say it, Matt, it's superficial.
Yeah, of course it is. Sells newspapers, Peter, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, I remember you go back to your local classifieds. I know not many people probably get them anymore, but you still get them online. And I remember living in Castle Hill. You get the Hillshire Times, whatever it used to be called, or whatever. And you get your Cafe of the Year in there, you know? Or you get your Real Estate of the Year, the awards at the end of the year, and they're all getting a cup and all this kind of stuff. It was totally based on how much they spent with the magazine.
Exactly.
So you're amongst a fellow cynic of awards here, mate. All right, believe me.
So the ulterior motives. But, you know, so I've got challenges with it, though, Matt. You know, I mean, I have been involved in the judging process, and let me tell you, it's very cursory, the process. I mean, you can't interview 10,000 finance executives in Australia and determine who's the best.
No.
And even if you could, it would only be subjective. So all of that sort of stuff is a challenge. But there is that sort of ulterior motive where somebody like an IT vendor who may be sponsoring the awards wants to meet certain CIOs, and what a great way, but to give them a title.
I mean, with any of these awards, Peter, you know, particularly in the tech industry, and it's not that it's pay for play or anything like that, but it's more a case of that they are sponsored. Yeah. Obviously, right? Yeah. These things need to be funded, and then that kind of gives you advertising rights and that kind of thing as well. So there's certainly, I think, a degree of that at play here as well.
But it's not a meritocracy then, Matt.
No, exactly.
Yeah, but Matt, I want to make a point, Matt. I'm not having a dig here at Stevie Ann. You go on to her LinkedIn profile. This is a lady who's done the hard yards.
She's done a lot more than we'll ever do in tech transformation.
Well, she definitely has. She definitely has. She's done the hard yards. Yeah. You know, she's 7 years with Westpac, 4 years with BT. She's worked for the big consulting companies, so she understands change management, the practices and the principles of it.
They're very hard organisations to drive change in as well, Peter, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah.
But it's this accolade of IT finance technology executive of the year. I just feel it might create a perception in CEOs out there that actually you can make instantaneous change in your organizations and not recognize there's hard yards that you need to go through to make effective change.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, but you even to sort of make some wins along the way, you still got to make those hard changes along the way as well. But, you know, I kind of think to myself, it's a lonely job, you know. The CIO, the CISO, the CFO. You know, there's very little glory or recognition. We're not, you know, they're not rock stars. They're not kind of movie moguls or, you know.
And the whipping boys have something.
Whipping boys. Absolutely, that's right. So I think that there is a need for the recognition and the need to be able to sort of hold people up and give them accolades as well.
But let's look at that grinding change management, the challenges of change management, because there's so many facets to change management we've got to do. We've got culture change. We've got new ways of working. We've got to overcome the mindset of people say we've always done it that way. Well, maybe there's a better way of doing it, is the answer. You've got process redesign. So suddenly people can't find the ways to do a job they've always done, and they feel a bit threatened by it. You know, you've got legacy in environments. How you make the new world marry with the old world and integrate data from two systems. They're all humongously difficult things.
Yeah, they are. And I think to that point as well, Peter, when you said, like, can we really get this, you know, whether it's this CIO or another one, can we really get that much done in 1 year? Yeah. You know, when ultimately it can take a lot longer. And, you know, you and I were kind of waxing lyrical a bit as well. I remember I was in Gold Coast Health, actually, Gold Coast Hospital, probably just coming out of COVID. Anyway, I had the CIO there and all his tech team were there. I was presenting to them, and we were talking about, you know, the priorities for the year ahead and that kind of thing. And I made the comment, even though the CIO was in the room, I said the challenge we have that the tenure of your average CIO is 2 to 3 years. Yeah. At the end of the day. And to your point, most projects take longer than 3 years. And so we kind of put in place this, you know, the big hairy, audacious goal into the future, or that destination. But most of the time, we don't see it through to the end. Yeah. Right. And so I think that again, is why if we recognise that we're probably not going to see it through to the end, that's not the fault of any particular CIO. We've got to find those steps along the way, because if we don't, two things: we're never going to get recognition, And secondly, we're never going to get another job.
Well, but the feedback I get from CIOs is this: when somebody jumps ship after 2 years, it's seen invariably by a lot of CIOs as a way of bailing out before they've done all the glamour, the honeymoon stuff, the glamorous stuff, selecting new systems, gone to America to look at all the product plans for these people. They've done all that glamorous stuff, and as soon as the hard work comes, which is invariably around the 2-year mark, they jump ship to their next opportunity. Now, I'm not blaming them for doing that, but I think there's a lot of resentment for because the CIO heroes of mine are people who've been in organizations for 5, 6, 7 years, because I know they've done all that change stuff. They haven't shied away from it.
I think a lot of that's got to because quite often we celebrate the concepts, Peter,
yes,
as much as the outcomes. And even in current thinking around sort of performance management, it's not always seen as being the best thing to say with an organisation. Right, this person's achieved this, and this individually, so they're fantastic. But it's kind of like where you've demonstrated that ability to bring the team along the journey with you. Much more about that team sport kind of thing as well. So it's what I'm getting at here is quite often how we're rewarding people today, and I think for the right reasons, is on the effort they're taking to ultimately get somewhere. So if you're demonstrating along the way that you've got the right strategy in place, you've got people coming along with you. Within many businesses, that's how we measure performance at the end of the day. It's that kind of, continuous performance management rather than results-driven performance management.
Yeah, and that's why I have some concerns, because you're not really rewarding the outcome, you're actually rewarding the effort. Yeah. And somebody always said to me a long time ago, work smarter, not harder. That's just how do you optimize your sort of time. But there's an element of this that we're coming to, Matt, which I think is the CEO expectations. Actually understanding a lot of people in traditional organizations, CEOs who are leading that, they can see a world that's changing around them. I mean, KPMG say one of the things that keeps CEOs awake at night is the digital transformation of their organization. And they've got to recognize that this is hard work. Absolutely. This is not instantaneous outcomes for it. And they've got to be with the people and support the people through the transition that they're on.
Yeah, I agree. And I think ultimately you've got to be able to demonstrate that you've delivered on what you said you're going to do, right? The outcome, the project, that sort of thing. Because ultimately then, that's why we see this continuous focus by CEOs on wanting to see value being driven out of digital transformation, because it's just ongoing, it's relentless. But you said yourself, you've been a judge on one of these kind of award situations, probably at IDG, I would imagine.
No, I was actually independent at the time. I was judging a vendor's awards.
Because I've been invited to go on those as well. So kind of coming back here is that, so you've got this kind of panel of independent people, judging this.
Yeah.
Then is it the CIO that's kind of doing the wrong thing? Is it the process? Or is it what's being presented to the judges? Because it's not that as an independent panelist or whatever on one of these award procedures, you're not getting to say to do your own work in terms of who you think will be right.
No, that's right.
You're given here's 20 people.
Yeah, I mean they want your imprimatur.
Absolutely. So you're being given this list of 10 or 20 people. Now choose the best.
Yeah.
So we can say perhaps the whole awards process is not as tight as it should be, but at the end of the day, whoever wins, and we're talking about one particular person here, she's won based on what a group of supposed experts have decided was the best of the crop.
Yeah. So I think what we're really talking about here, though, Matt, is there value in this process, or is it really just superficial commercial outcomes for people who are sponsoring a particular article? And if it is that, well, that's the way the world works. I understand. But also, are we creating false expectations in people who may be deceived by this, that actually things are easier to do than they really are?
I think there's certainly a risk of that, absolutely. It's kind of that shiny object scenario, Peter, as well. But maybe how we need to rethink this is that, you don't just have that single award, like you got, the leading, finance or manufacturing IT exec of the year, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But maybe you need multiple layers to that, based
or
on.
is it a team award, Matt? Are you walking
That's what I'm saying.
the architect, the CISO, the CIO,
absolutely.
as a team get the award?
And then do we maybe need an award where it's, 3 years ago this project was set, here's 10 CIOs who've kind of seen it through to the end.
Yeah.
And then you award them. But then again, okay, you might have a successful outcome.
Yeah.
But to your point, have they made that a team sport?
Yes.
Because we don't want rock stars here, Peter. We want rock bands.
No. I think the last thing you want is a rock star. You want actually a band. This is a collegiate effort, a community of people have to work together to drive that outcome.
Okay.
But
and if anyone's looking for a couple of judges, by the way, Peter and I are always available.
That's right. Matt travels business class, I must warn. But what I will say is this is very much what Boom and Bust is about. What we're really talking about is actually these challenges of making IT effective in our organization. How do we educate CEOs on what they need to do, where to be aware of how they can change their organization, what goals and expectations do they need to set, how can they get progress along the way iteratively so they can make sure and be comfortable that they're making progress. This is the essence of Boom or Bust, isn't it, Matt?
Absolutely, Peter. That's what we decided when we kind of first came up with the concept, and that's really what we want to try and achieve and deliver. And basically, at the end of the day, also, via our various channels, if there's something you want us to talk about, let us know. We're open to conversations.
Yeah, and if you've got any experience of the IT benchmarking or IT benchmarks or IT awards, any personal experiences that you'd be shared, it's all anonymous, chat them out or all, isn't it, Matt?
Absolutely.
We want your talk or thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, on how we can incorporate some of those ideas in some of our episodes.
All right, great. Thank you, Peter, as always.
Thank you, Matt. Cheers.